I'm here with the Rane DJ 72 mixer. Some of you have been asking about the Mag 3 faders, how they work, how to adjust them, disassemble them, etc. So today we're going to have a closer look at the Mag 3 faders. We'll cover the adjustments you can do, both using the mixer settings and internal to the mixer. We'll disassemble the fader so you can see how it goes together and how it works, and this might be helpful to you if you ever need to troubleshoot or replace your fader or any of its parts like the carrier, or if you're just curious about what it looks like under the hood. So let's get started. The Mag 3 faders on the 72 are a non-contact magnetic design similar to its predecessor, but now featuring a new carrier design that is up to 160 times stronger. These faders are adjustable in four ways: cut-in, contour, reverse, and tension. So we'll go through that quickly. To adjust the cut-in, press and hold the menu button, and then you want to go to cut-in, adjust, tap a fader to adjust, and you can adjust a cut-in from 1 to, looks like 16. So we're going to adjust this one to 2, set, this one to 2 as well. We'll just adjust them all to 2. On the crossfader you can adjust both sides. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to create a dead space between the physical endpoints of the faders and the point at which the mixer starts tracking the fader movement. So consider this a buffer zone or a larger target for turning the fader on or off. So the next adjustment we can do is the contour. There are 3 dedicated knobs on the front plate of the mixer that you can go from a slow, smooth fade or a fast, abrupt fade in. There are also reverse switches for each of the faders and also a deck swap, so you can swap deck 1 and deck 2. Now that we've covered the adjustments you can do externally to the mixer using the settings, contour knobs, and switches, let's open it up and have a look at the faders themselves. We'll look at how you can use the tension adjustment screw to further customize the feel of the faders, and also how to disassemble the faders for basic troubleshooting, maintenance, and because one of the benefits of having a pro mixer like this is that these are user serviceable parts. We like to know our gear inside and out, so let's have a look. So first we're going to turn the mixer off with the switch in the back, and we're actually going to unplug it from the power. Now we're going to remove 6 screws from the mixer. To remove the fader caps, just use firm straight up and down pressure from your fingers, or use a plastic pry bar designed for electronics disassembly, like those commonly used to disassemble cell phones for battery replacement. These are all identical, faders and caps as well, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up. Okay, so we're going to take this plate off, set this aside. So inside we've got 3 identical faders. Let's just note the position of them. The ribbons are facing in, so that's how we're going to put them back if we take them out. And these are the tension adjustment screws, and so you adjust those with a flathead screwdriver, and what that's going to do is it's going to move a magnet closer and further away from a rail on the inside. So if you screw it clockwise, it's going to be a little more tense, and if you unscrew it or even remove it altogether, it will be looser. Now I wouldn't recommend removing it altogether. You know, when this screw is backed out, the magnet's far enough away where it's really not affecting the motion too much. So let's take this out of there and see what it looks like. So I'm going to note that these screws are different, and what I'm going to do is these screws are different than these casing screws. They're a little bit longer, so I'm going to set them aside separately, and I'm backing them out most of the way, and then I'm going to hold on to the circuit board with my fingers to just take it out the fine little bit so that the circuit board doesn't fall into the body. You wouldn't hurt it, but you know, might as well be nice to it. Okay, so inside we have a ribbon cable, and we're going to take this off. You don't have to. We're just going to do it though. But you wouldn't need to take that off to look at it or to do most. You don't even need to take it out to do most adjustments. But these are user replaceable as well. So if you needed to put a new one in, if you had a spare or something like that, you could put it in yourself. So I'm just going to back this out with my fingernails, this ribbon here. And you won't be able to install this the incorrect way, so don't worry about that because it's only going to go in one way. Just be careful of those. So here we are with the Rane DJ Mag 3 crossfader from the 72 mixer. So the way it works is there are two rails and there is a carrier in the center, and that is going to slide back and forth on these rails, and there are magnets that keep it from touching the rails most of the time. And so the way the tension adjust works is that this screw goes in and out and brings a magnet closer or further away from this rail here. And you see between the opposition of those two magnets, it helps float the carrier in its travel. The faders ship from the factory with a very thin, almost invisible layer of a Teflon-based lubricant on these rails. Over time, you may find it necessary to reapply lubricant here. If and when you do, we recommend using either a Teflon-based lubricant or the Deoxit Fader F Series lubricant product, which used to be called Kaig Calalube. And placing just one or two small drops on either rail, you'll then work it back and forth using the carrier to create just the thinnest possible film. You certainly want to make sure not to spray or otherwise get the PCB wet. And you should know that too much or the wrong type of lubricant can actually trap and attract contaminants, which is not what you want. So while we're here, I wanted to show you guys how you can troubleshoot something that can happen in a really rare case. So I have this screwed out all the way for an example. This screw has a magnet on the end. And in rare case, now that magnet's supposed to stay on the end of the screw. In rare cases, it could come off. And if you can imagine, when it comes off, it's going to get stuck right here onto the rail, right? But if it's inside this channel, it's going to be stuck to the rail right there, and you'll have a hard time getting it out. So we're going to reproduce that. I've got a magnet right here, and a little magnet right here from another assembly I've got, and I'm going to pop it right in here to simulate kind of an issue that could happen and what it might feel like to you. So normally you would have your screw would be missing its magnet and to be in there. You wouldn't know any of this was happening, but what you would probably experience would be kind of a grindy fader. You can tell right away that this is not how this amazing world-class mixer's fader is supposed to feel, and that's happening because that magnet's hanging out there grinding on the rail like it's not supposed to. So how would we get it out? Actually, so here's one trick. If you took the screw from one of your other mixers that does have its magnet on it, look at that, I pulled it right out. Okay, so if you ever find yourself with a grindy fader where you need to get that magnet out, you would go to one of your other faders, you know, your two channel faders or your crossfader, whichever one you're not working on here, and you would unscrew the screw and it would come out just like this, and you can just pop this in and use the other magnet that you have to get the first one out, and then you just put it back on the first screw and then put it in. Normally they're not going to travel far enough to get the magnet stuck onto the rail anyways, so this is a rare occurrence. What we're going to do now is fully disassemble the PCB from the rails and the carrier, and this is the procedure that you would use if you ever needed to replace the carrier itself, and it's also another way that you can get to that magnet if it ever did get stuck inside on the rail. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn the crossfader over and we're going to remove these 4 screws here, and that's going to allow us to take the PCB off of the rails. Okay, so now that it's taken off the rails, we can remove this here. There are 2 little tabs on either side here that kind of position it onto the PCB, and that's why we need to take the screws off, because we couldn't really get these off. So something to note is on each one of these rails there is a little O-ring, and we're gonna just work this off. Let's see. All right, this one's pretty tight. Okay, there we go. And so now that that's off, you see there's an O-ring on this side There's no ring on that side. So don't lose those. If you do, you just contact Rane and they'll get you more. But now that this is out, here we go. And so on this one, it just popped out in that direction. So I've got it here in my hand. And I can put that back on the screw and we'd be good to go. So now that we've got the magnet out, we'll set that aside. We'll put the O-ring back on the rail, slide the bottom rail through the carrier, feed the top rail, feed these rails back together. Okay. And then we'll put this PCB back on. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we just put the magnet right back onto the end of the screw. It sticks right on there. And now that can go right back into the carrier and do its job. Use a flathead screwdriver to screw that in. And you can set this to any level of tension that you want. Now it's floating just like it should. Let's get the mixer put back together. Okay, now that we have our crossfader reassembled, we're going to put it back into the mixer and reassemble the mixer. So we're going to put the ribbon cable back into the connector. You can't put it in the wrong way. You can try, just be careful of the pins. And now we're going to put the PCB back in, but we're going to put it with the ribbon connectors facing inwards, just like the other ones. Okay, I'm going to get the screws here. Remember, these are longer than the screws that hold the faceplate on. Just keep them separate. I'm going to hand tighten these in while I hold the PCB. That's going to let me let go of the PCB and then use a screwdriver to finish them up. And we're just being careful not to cross thread them. It's another good reason that I like to hand tighten them on the way in. And you can feel right when this is screwed in enough. Right. Okay. Put the faceplate back on. Go. And replace the 6 screws. There you have it. Well, I hope you found this helpful. If you do, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have any questions at all, please leave them in the comments below. Also, check the video description for links to other helpful guides and answers to common questions. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.